What's up everyone, it's Brad with the Hodl Fandom. Today we're going to take a look at the first ever release from Veve, the Todd McFarlane Batman. We'll dig into the story behind the collectible, dive into the comic that it's from, and then touch on the value of it as an investment. Let's get into it. The artwork which this collectible is based on is by Todd McFarlane, who is a renowned artist and who worked with both DC and Marvel Comics as both an artist and a writer. With Marvel, he worked with several Spider-Man storylines, first as an artist and then as a writer. He co-created Venom and drew his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 299. Due to creative differences, McFarlane would move to Image Comics, and there he would create the Spawn franchise in 1992. The comics did really well, but the movie unfortunately did not. I think due to it being an R-rated comic, being declawed and squeezed into PG-13 format. Spawn would also cross over with Batman in 1994 in a few comic series, and this was a crossover with a franchise that Todd McFarlane created some of the most iconic covers for, including the one our Todd collectible is based on, the cover of Batman issue number 423. If you haven't read this comic, let me give you a quick summary of the story. We see Batman in 3 different situations and shows his different personalities and his wide array of skills to handle each of those scenarios. These different scenarios are discussed by cops at a local diner who were witnesses. The first story shows Batman with a drug addict trying to commit suicide on a bridge. The addict feels he has nothing going for him and is better off dead. Batman catches him as he jumps off and gives him a hard lecture on the value of life. According to the cop's testimony, who was there to witness it, that talk apparently shocks him into getting his act together. The next situation is with a gang of punks who take civilians hostage and they want money in return. As one of them tries to kill a hostage, Batman appears and handles this much differently than the previous one by basically giving them a pretty bad beating. The last scenario shows a softer side of Batman as he sees a pair of homeless children. He learns about their tragic story and allows them to stay with his quote-unquote friend Bruce Wayne in his mansion until authorities are able to find a relative who can help take care of them. So this is basically a story showing the versatility of Batman as he is able to do what is needed in different situations. It's not the craziest of stories out there, but it does help build and round out the character of Batman. The real value is in the cover art by Todd McFarlane. He didn't do the art inside the comic itself, he just did the cover. This is something he did with other DC comics as well, where he would just do the cover art. So let me explain the statues a little bit. So DC Direct have one of the longest running collectible lines out there with their Batman Black and White series. They started creating statues of some of the iconic pieces of art from their comics and artwork from their most famed artists. Their first release was the Eduardo Risso Batman in 2005. That is why our Veve NFT of Eduardo Risso's Batman has the number 1 on there. This doesn't refer to the comic release, this is the Batman Black and White statue release number. The first non-Batman statue released was the Jim Lee Joker in 2009, and this was followed by other non-Batman characters like Carmine Infantino's Robin, Jim Lee's Nightwing, and Brian Boland's Penguin, just to name a few. We already have these on Veve as NFTs, but there are still a lot more to come. There are so many amazing pieces of art here, and it's really hard for me to say which one I'm looking forward to most. DC Direct saved a special statue with their 100th release, and that was the Todd McFarlane Batman, our NFT. That's why we see the number 100 on the name. That's the statue release number, and it was featured on the cover of Batman issue number 423. So that's the backstory of our Veve NFT in regards to both the comic that it's from and the DC Direct collection. Let's touch on the value of the NFT as I see it. So the value of this, in my opinion, will be driven by the success of Veve. I mean, let me clarify, because I guess you could say that for every Veve collectible. This one will have one of the biggest potentials to grow if Veve can become a household name. Similar to like the Jack Dorsey tweet, which is the first tweet he ever made. He sold that for $2.9 million. It would be worthless if Twitter didn't amount to anything. So I'm definitely not saying that the Todd Batman will be worth $2.9 million. Definitely not, because there is only one tweet and there are 7,500 Todds out there, which is not a lot in the big picture, but my point is, as the first released on a platform, if you expect that platform to become big, it has an edge that no other Veve collectible has. It, however, needs Veve to become a household name. So if you believe that will be the case, if you believe Veve will grow to that extent, maybe grabbing one is worth it. So I only have one negative with this, is that I wish the comic itself was part of a bigger storyline, or it was a catalyst to something big. I mean, the story itself, it was okay. I don't think it was that good. It was an interesting change of pace from what we expect to see traditionally in comics, but if I were to even buy the comic itself, I wouldn't be buying it for its story. I'd be buying it for its cover art and for its tie into Veve. So speaking of the comic, if the current price, the 1600 gem price tag on the Todd is too much for you, something I was thinking about was a saying back in the day, or it's actually a book, if it's raining in Brazil, buy Starbucks. Not Starbucks coffee, Starbucks stock. I've never read the book, but I think I know what it's implying, and that you need to pay attention to indicators that will move the market. I mean, in that Starbucks example, you don't wait for a news article to say, hey, it's time to buy Starbucks. In an efficient market, that would be way too late. You need to look for indicators that tell you when it's a good time. So if we think Veve is going to go mainstream, then that should be an indicator that the Todd NFT will gain significant value. If that NFT gains significant value, then the comic cover, which it is based on, has a chance to gain as well. And they are selling for $100 to $200 Canadian, as opposed to the 1.6K USD, or gems. Now, this is not financial advice, just something I was thinking about as I put a few of those on my eBay watch list. And these are definitely ifs on top of ifs on top of ifs, so I expect diminishing return with each progressive if. Also, the timing is long term because Metaverse and Veveverse mass adoption will be in years, not months, in my opinion. So if you are thinking of that, there was no rush, and for me personally, I'm grabbing other collectibles on eBay right now. Again, not financial advice, just some things to think about if the NFT price tag is too high for you. Anyways, that's your Todd McFarlane Batman from the cover of Batman issue 423. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.